Hello guys, it is your favorite son from David Down, and this is our introduction to C, which is my least favorite language. I must let you guys know that, but that shouldn't discourage you guys. I'm not going to be any less of a good teacher. I just dread C. C is actually one of the oldest, if not the oldest language. We can actually let us Google how old C is. Now, I was just teaching Python here, but C programming language. I think it must be the oldest. I think so. C, what we'll focus on in this video, guys, is um, just introduction to C. So two things that's very important for us to know: how to display and how to save to variables, how to display. Nothing else I can think of top of my head now. But yeah, so I'm on now. I am on. This is VS Code, obviously, as I'm sure you guys might know. Also, if you're a beginner and you're learning C, and I mean as your first programming language, I wouldn't recommend you learn C as a first language. There is a Python playlist, so I'd recommend you learn Python as a first language. Again, that's for people that are completely new to programming and want to learn a language. I wouldn't learn C first, I'd learn Python. So there is a Python playlist on the page that takes you from beginner to wherever we end up. That is very, very similar to this. It starts like this with variables and everything that we're doing here. Cool. So I did want to so again, this is VS Code. If you guys want to know how to set up C on Visual Studio, it's not as simple as and intuitive as you may think. We can do a tutorial on that perhaps in the next video on how to set up your C environment on VS Code. Another reason I don't like C is just it's a headache to set up. But once you have it set up, then we can go. So the first thing, you don't have to worry too much about this. This is mandatory for C to run on most IDEs, most text editors. You'd put this at the beginning of your script, include sdio.h, and then to make let's start with printing. So let's start with display. So if I want to display something on C, so we'd first have to do something like this. Let me make sure I get the syntax right. Int main. Cool. Print, no, not like that. Print F and then C. Hello. So I'll explain all of this to you guys now in a second. Do we need to do no, not like that, not like that, like that. And then we would return. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. If you guys can perhaps look. Okay, let's run this code and see. Okay, cool. So we get hello world. Right. So in C, to print something to the console, to display it to a person. So we coding something along, we coding a game, let's say, and at the end of our game, we want to print hooray to the user that maybe they've won the game or the game is over. This is the function you'd use. It's called printf. Printf stands for formatting, so print formatting, and then the game is over. Perhaps let's say the game is over. What this will do is at the end of the person's script or whatever, it will print to them the game's over. So this print, you could think of printf to be the same as say show me something for me as the developer, and even for the person on the front end, maybe that's using your user interface, they'll see the words the game is over. Now we'll obviously use print a lot. It's a very, 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 I wouldn't even say handy, fundamental function that we're going to use. This int main and open close brackets is another mandatory thing you must have for your C code to run. It's syntactically correct. Open close curly braces, and then these these colons, semicolons at the end of everything in C. So you can't run something in C without these semicolons at the end, right? So let's actually print a whole lot of things. So what did we say there? We said the game is over. Let's say apologies, Bruce. Okay, actually there is something I did forget to do. \n. Apologies, Bruce. You lost on score. Let's say your game had scores, right? So let's say there was a score to your game, like you could, like a score between 1 and 100. So you lost on score, let's say 45, and then \n. So what \n is, guys, is it moves your cursor, or for someone on the front end, it moves the cursor to the next line. So \n basically means next line. So when a person reads this, it would say the game is over, cursor moves to the next line. Apologies, Bruce, you lost on score 49, cursor moves to the next line. So this is another convention of C that is not very common in other programming languages, but it's something that you would want to add to most of the end of your print statements. And then, so yeah, that's how we do this. So let's say I run this. This should run with no problems. Let's just see, the computer's just a little bit slow. So apologies, Bruce. The game is over. Apologies, Bruce. You lost on score 45. Now, let's say I don't want to speak to Bruce, ne? Let's say I want to speak to John. And let's say John didn't lose on score 45. Let's say he lost on score 79, let's say. And then John, for example. Now, this is a small program. It's only 2 lines. All it says is the game is over. Apologies, John, you lost on score 79. But let's say this was a part of a greater program that had maybe 20,000 lines of code. So I wouldn't be able to change it from Bruce to John on every single line of 20,000 code. Anytime you're doing that in programming, you know something's wrong. There's a better way to approach that kind of problem. So what we then do to solve that problem, and we're going to get more in depth to even make it more sort of quicker, handy to solve a problem like that, is we'll make use of variables, right? So a variable, then I want to do something like, instead of saying John, I want to put a name here, something like that, like a name here, and then I want to put like 79 here, like, or the score here, his actual score, not 79, such that if the score changes, I only change it at one place and it automatically changes here and on all other 20,000 lines of code. So I don't have to manually go John, and change it to whatever the person's name is. So if someone else wants to come play the game, name would change and it would change on all the lines of code. So here's how we do something like that. That's where variables come in. So variables are boxes or holders of information. Now, for now, I'm going to do what's called hard coding a variable. When we move on, you'll see how the variable can be dynamic and change with time. But for now, let's hard code the variable. So C is not as intuitive as other languages. Creating a variable is not as simple as just writing the name of a variable and saving it. In C, you'd have to say var for variable. So that's telling C sorry, not var, char, to tell C that characters are coming into this. Now that matters because if you put in characters, so characters are like letters like this. If you put in characters, C needs to know that incoming to your variable, that let's call it person's name, right? You need to tell C that coming into this variable are characters, right? And if it's more than one character, which it is, because a person's name, well, I would imagine is more than one character, you would put 2 square brackets like this, and you would say equals, let's say, Max is the name. And then we want to put a score, right? So now you wouldn't say char because now you want to put in numbers, right? You don't want to put in characters like this. You want to put in numbers. So to put in numbers, you would say int, which stands for integer. CAR stands for characters like this. INT stands for integer. And then person's score, correct? And then there you don't have to put these squares. You can just put a score. So let's say 12. Now, what we do is I want this now, right, to, let me just make sure that I've done this correctly. Again, I've forgotten the thing is at the end. So again, guys, you can never forget these things. Otherwise, the code breaks. So again, C is one of the few programming languages where this is absolutely paramount. You have to have the colons. I can now come and do something like this. So the game is over. Percentage sign S, comma, person's name. And then you lost on score, percentage sign, and then this is D for digit. Yes, I think that's the correct syntax. And then we would say person's score. So have I done this correctly? I think I have. So what we've done here is this is now going to put whatever person's name is. So again, picture I've got long. Okay, let's first actually run it and first see that it works. So this should print the game is over and then person's name, which is Max. Apologies, you lost on score, and then the person's score, which is 12, right? So let's run this and make sure that it works. So I really don't know. Okay, cool. So there we go. Game is over, Max. Apologies, you lost on score 12. So let me just quickly explain what's happening here with percentage S and percentage D. They are sort of placeholders in your code. Percentage S stands for string. So a sequence of characters like this, like Max, when you transport it now into your code that you're going to print, transports as %C and then the variable where the characters are. So character goes with C, it's a string. So %C stands for string, and then C is expecting you to put a variable here as a placeholder for this. So this talks to this, and it should be a string, a sequence of characters. This %D stands for digit. So this has to be integers, has to be digits, has to be a number. Placeholder here, and then it's going to speak to this and person score. So you could put this D anywhere. So if I remove it from there, say, and put it, apologies, now this obviously won't make sense now as far as what the sentence means is concerned, but I could put the D there, and then if we run this, it's going to say now, apologies, 12, which is obviously not what we're trying to do, but I'm just trying to demonstrate that this D, wherever it is in your code, speaks to person score, right? So the game is over, Max, apologies, 12, because that's now where the placeholder is. You lost on score, Now, or you can have more than one. So if I've got hashtag D there, %sign D there, it will run with no problems, so long as, let's just wait for this to run. So what happens here, you'll notice, is if you don't put, okay, so this happened because I didn't person score. Right, let's run this again. So again, if you don't put, you need to put as many Ds that correspond with your code, right? So if I put D here, I'd need to put person score here, person score here. If I only put it once, Python C is going to ignore the second D. It's only going to interpret the first one, as you guys saw there. So I think we'll leave it there.